there's another question that I thought we might entertain, and I think this dovetails a little bit with what Matt mentioned earlier about Paul Tudor Jones owning crypto, but owning Bitcoin, but doing so through futures, so not in the purest sense. And any thoughts on the development of crypto ETFs? So, what are your thoughts there, gents? That might attract more people into the space because of the whole difficulty of actually having a digital wallet, and a lot of people might see that as too steep of a curve to embrace. Probably not the institutional space, obviously, but what are your thoughts there? Do you think it's a less legitimate way to play the field?
Well, legitimate is a loaded word, but not your keys, not your coins, but it's probably a decent proxy for exposure to the asset class. Again, depending on how it's constructed, and there's a lot of devil in the details. So we'll see. I don't think it'll be that long before we see an ETF at this point, right? They've been bouncing off the regulators for quite a while now. I actually am a little maybe contrarian to a Bitcoiner anyway on this. I'm not waiting or even hoping for an ETF. I think it creates elements of centralization that kind of were the whole point is to avoid a lot of them. And yeah, there's risks, I guess, that come with that centralization. Like what happens if there is another fork, even though I think that the forks are over, but then you've got, an administrator making a choice as to which chain you follow. There's things that are outside of your control. And that's the issue with gold, right? A lot of Bitcoiners have with gold is that it's become centralized, right? It ends up in a bunch of vaults and governments can seize it. And you have a certificate, you have a claim, but it's been hypothecated, it's been lent out. Does it even exist? Let's audit the Fed. So, it pushes Bitcoin a little bit in that direction. That being said, it will open it up for more people to buy it. So it probably is going to help the price.
So we have some, we've got, what is it? We've got.
I would certainly agree with that. I think relative to some of the alternatives at the moment, right? So there are, so the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, for example, is probably kind of the closest estimation to it. But I think, we have seen, obviously there are some unintended consequences on the back of that, right? As retail gets exposure to it via OTC, at a premium, right? So that obviously, I think in my mind, sort of necessitates the development of an ETF, right? Particularly to the extent the SEC is interested in protecting retail investors and so forth. I think it makes it a more efficient way to access. And I think it also saves them from the potential pitfalls around managing their own keys and what have you, where they're just not quite, maybe technically proficient enough to understand. If you've got someone who can do that for them in a relatively liquid form and hopefully accessible and cheap form, then I think it's probably necessary. I totally appreciate Rob's point around, the potential downsides of that. But it seems to me it's an inevitability. It's probably a healthy development, I think, for the space more broadly.
Don't we want the financialization of the asset class more and more, though, if it's a speculative asset?
Yeah. If you're just purely concerned with price, then you want ETF, you want every kind of access available to the retail or institutional investor for that matter. But the financialization, I would say, no, not necessarily. Like that implies all the things that I just kind of spoke about, where we're lending, we're fractional reserve. Like That's where a lot of the problems that I think Bitcoin alleviates, stem from. So, yeah, personally, I'm not looking for the financialization, although it's coming. I mean, Matt has some great points. I actually agree with all those. People are not, by and large, in a position to manage their own keys, especially with the current state of it. It's difficult. It's technical. It's prone to loss, and a lot of people are losing their Bitcoin. So, as much as I say not your keys, your coins, I can in the same breath say like it's a risky thing that requires a fair bit of attention and maybe some some technical chops to pull off. So an ETM does democratize that access to it, and in that respect, it's a good thing.
All right. Did you guys talk about any of the, how did we talk? I missed some of this. So did we talk about how an investor might consider this as a portfolio asset at all? Was that covered? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. In
Good. Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
To a large degree, I would
Great.
say so. So I guess, I mean, we're running up at around an hour, 20 minutes. Just to maybe sort of summarize this, and for any kind of institution, family office, someone out there that is considering the space and thinking about how maybe getting access to it, if you guys were to summarize how they might consider it for a portion of the portfolio, I guess dovetailing slightly with what Mike was asking. Best ways, focus on Bitcoin, go purist.
Irresponsibly long.
I had no doubts, Rob. You're the biggest hodler in this group here by far, no doubt.
That's like, I've got a fund. Rob's like, you should just be long. We're doing a bunch of
obviously we're I mean, I spoke to it a little bit earlier around the barbell approach. I think there's certainly the directional nature of the exposure, which makes great sense, but there's also that more perhaps less directional in nature, which just capitalizes on the inefficiencies on offer, which can allow for more continuous thinking, which doesn't sort of command 10-year plus lockups, doesn't command willingness to stomach 75% drawdowns. I think there's a number of different ways to skin the cat here. And I come at it from the hedge fund side, putting aside the philosophical belief in Bitcoin and crypto and how it can be world changing. I come at it more as a trader and view it as just another asset class to trade at the moment, which just so happens to be incredibly inefficient and therefore highly compelling.